Hello and welcome to the very first August edition of the Talking Fantasy Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Eric Henriksen, and with me once again, because he was not traded during yesterday's trade deadline, is Josh J. Josh, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Ready to talk about the deadline movers.
Yeah, that was a wild day we had yesterday at the real life Major League Baseball trade deadline. So today is part 2 of our 2-part trade deadline special. We're talking real life trades today and their impact on fantasy. And I would dare to say that there was a wide-ranging implications all around baseball yesterday. So
hmm
hopefully you were paying attention as the day was going along and making the necessary moves because a lot of teams didn't have games, so you could add drop players like crazy. And I'm a victim of not paying attention to one of them. We'll get to that in a little bit. But today we're going to cover closer chaos, all the trades, all the closers that were
hmm
moved left and right, up and down, traded for top 10 organizational prospects, and one even traded for a top 3 overall prospect. We'll get
Oh
there
my God.
in a little bit. We are also going to talk about some big names, Eugenio Suarez, Shane Bieber, Carlos Correa, and more. And then we're just going to touch on a few guys who weren't dealt, surprisingly or unsurprisingly. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. And as a friendly reminder, we release 2 new episodes each week. Our full feature-length episode on Fridays, sometimes Saturdays, and Tuesdays with our shorter news and notes episode we call the Midweek Minutes. So be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and the Odyssey app. And leave us a 5-star rating, a like, a thumbs up, a kind review. It goes a long way in helping us out. And with that, let's get to it. Trade Deadline Special Part 2, Closer Chaos. So lots of closers were traded yesterday. They were tossed around, like I said, left and right, up and down, for huge price tags all around the league. And let's start with what I thought, and I think the consensus was the most surprising of them and the biggest price tag of them all. And that was Mason Miller and JP Sears were traded to the San Diego Padres for, now, most of the package doesn't matter except this one. 18-year-old number 3 overall prospect, Leo DeVries. And I think this was just absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I was floored by this, honestly.
San Diego is trading a potential future superstar, a guy who's at the level that Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa were at 18 years old. You're trading a
hmm
future superstar for a closer, one. Two, a closer with an extensive injury history,
That's right. Yeah.
and a mediocre starting pitcher. I don't know what the Padres were thinking here, dealing a superstar, or I should say a potential superstar, because he's 18 years old. Who knows? He could flame out. You never know. For these 2 players, like they didn't get Kurtz,
Right. Yeah.
they didn't get Soderstrom, they didn't get Wilson, they didn't get Lawrence Butler. They got Mason Miller. Granted,
hmm
Mason Miller's great, and JP Sears.
Yeah, and they already had Robert Suarez, so I guess you could argue it's like, well, they're well, I think I guess they are. What is it, AJ Preller?
Yes.
I think he's desperately trying to, he's made so many big trades over the past 5 or 6 seasons, and I think really the Padres farm system, like, this is kind of it. So
Yeah.
maybe this is just him trying to get on the right side of the history books by, making one final push to a World Series berth at least. So I guess that's his defense of trading Leo DeVries. But yeah, I just, like, from a fantasy perspective, I mean, I couldn't imagine trading, if you were in like a deep dynasty league. I was even thinking of picking him up in our 12-team league. Leo DeVries, keep forever. But he's just, as you said, he's so far, he's probably not gonna debut until like 2027, but still, he's so highly regarded as one of the elite talents coming up. I just couldn't imagine trading something like that just for a closer, like in fantasy even.
No, and it begs the question, I think, for fantasy purposes. is Robert Suarez going to be the closer, or is Mason Miller going to be the
Oof.
closer? Because
Yeah, that's
Miller could operate in that fireman role.
that's right.
I don't know. So this trade may have just eliminated one of the top 5 closers in fantasy.
I think this will be kind of a theme for this show is that we just don't really know. And and I think it's gonna warrant a lot of like, hawkish watchings over the weekend over, bullpen usage. I think it's unfortunately the situation and from my understanding right now, is that it's a murky situation in San Diego. I think they probably should use Mason Miller as the closer for considering what they paid. Um, but it kind of sounds like the manager wants to keep Suarez in the mix. So I don't know if it's just like a mix and match situation or, Robert Suarez gets a shot. And if he's shaky, I mean, he's been one of the best closers, but he's also, doesn't he have a pretty high ERA, I
Yeah,
think?
he had a stretch where he was quite bad, and everyone thought that he was going to lose his job.
That's right. So I don't know. I think it's just a wait and see. Unfortunately, again, you have like two of the top five closers now on the same team. So I guess it's kind of value down on both of them in some ways.
Yeah, it's not like one's a lefty and one's a righty, so they can mix and match, and you
Right.
might
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
get saves from either one. You still might get saves for either one, but the quantity is going to take a tremendous drop if they split
Yeah.
time.
You can't really drop either one right now,
No,
unfortunately.
you can't. You could try to sell one, but I think
Yeah. I
any
think
savvy manager is going to know that they need to hold off and see what happens.
yeah.
In this one deal, we've lost 1 or 2 top 5 closers so far this season, right? Okay, so let's move on, and I think here's another one. The Twins made 2 trades as well, dealing away the top part of their bullpen. They actually made more than that, but these are the
Yeah,
2
they
we're gonna touch on.
dealt away their whole bullpen.
Yeah, they
I don't
really
know. I
did.
don't even know who's going to handle the last 4 innings of any Twins games.
And you say that, and it's funny that you say 4 innings because I think it's gonna be more like 5 because who their starters, like Zebby
Oh,
Matthews hasn't
yeah,
worked
that's
deep into
right.
games, David Festa hasn't worked deep into games.
Position players will be closing out games, I
Oh,
guess.
the Twins are just gonna absolutely tank the rest of the season. Yeah, they did. You're right. They traded away their whole bullpen. Louis
Yeah.
Varland, starter turned reliever, traded to Toronto. Brock Stewart traded to the Dodgers. And
Mhm.
now these are the 2 we're gonna really go in depth on is Yoan Duran was traded to
Mhm.
the Phillies
Yep.
and Griffin Jacks to Tampa. But let's start with Duran, who was sort of splitting time as a closer when he first came up with the Twins, but over the
Yep.
last few years, he's sort of really taken the reins and been the go-to stopper for Minnesota. He was
Yep.
traded to Philly for Mick Abel, and I will say this is probably actually the one guy who's not going to lose his closer job.
I'd say his value's gone up. Like, I think he's definitely, he's been a solid closer, but I think this puts him into the top five easily. This move.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Phillies, Dave Dombrowski's done a great job in Philadelphia building a championship caliber roster. The one thing he has been really bad at over the last however many years is building a bullpen. It feels like every year the Phillies have a terrible bullpen. But over the last couple weeks, he's acquired Duran, he's signed David Robertson, and now all of a sudden you have a much deeper bullpen where Matt Strom and Orion Kerkering can
Yep.
move sort of into the 6-7
Yep.
role, or even into the 8th inning. You've got Duran in the 9th, and then Robertson can come in wherever because I still think he's good despite being 40 years old.
Yep. No, I think this is a great move for Duran. And I just think, as you were saying, the Phillies have just desperately needed that lockdown guy. So I just, what's been frustrating about Duran over the past couple seasons is, what's his name?
Rocco Baldelli.
Yeah, he's just been, for fantasy managers, you've just been pulling out your hair because you're like, come on, man, like quit messing around. Just use Duran as the closer. So I feel like this is just absolutely he's going to be used as the closer. I think the Phillies are tired of just this. carousel, and I think this is their guy, and they went out and got him, and this is it. So I think stock up on Duran. I think if you need a closer for your playoffs, and you know your fantasy trade deadline is approaching, I would trade for this guy.
We shouldn't fail to mention Jose Alvarado is coming back as well. Now, he's not eligible for the real life postseason, but he will be eligible for your fantasy postseasons. However, I think acquiring Duran means that's the guy. He's your closer. Alvarado's your lefty eighth inning guy. Matt Strom, your
Yeah.
lefty seventh. So I just didn't want to fail to mention that Jose Alvarado is coming back. Could potentially muddy the waters there, but I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
Yeah.
I think they went out and got their guy. I think they're probably tired of this, and I don't know. That's what
No, I
I
agree.
say. I think maybe I could be wrong, but
No, I don't think so. I think Duran is the guy.
to me this was very clear. But
Yes, absolutely. And the Phillies dealt away Mick Abel in that deal. Abel going back to the Twins, so I guess there's a guy that they can throw into their rotation to go 5 innings. I don't think this changes Abel's value at all. He's shown
no,
flashes, but overall, and I stick by this because I remember when I introed him on the podcast when they first called him up, I was like, "Who is Mick Abel?" Not interested. Moving on, they also dealt away Griffin Jax, who was the presumptive closer once they dealt away Duran, but Griffin Jax headed to Tampa, and so no closing opportunity there for Griffin Jax because
oh
Tampa
man,
did keep Pete Fairbanks,
yep.
and in the deal they traded away recently demoted Taj Bradley.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed because earlier in the day, yesterday, I picked up Jax just as a speculative ad, just because I had clocked that he had team control until I think through 2027. So I was like, oh, he's going to be pretty expensive. I think teams are probably going to be more interested in rentals and stuff, and the like. But nope, at the deadline, the Rays swooped in, picked him up, and I think, I mean, Jax has been a little, I would say, unlucky this season, but I would say he's better than Pete Fairbanks in talent wise. But unfortunately, Pete Fairbanks hasn't really faltered, so I think he gets the job at least through the remainder of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if Jax steps into a closer role for Tampa maybe next season. 'Cause I think I think his contract's up at the end of this season. So perhaps Jax is the closer in waiting for Tampa. But anyway, yeah, I kind of think Jax doesn't really have any value, maybe for holds leagues, but I think, Fairbanks is the guy. Taj Bradley, I think he's just a watch and see. I think he's got to figure stuff out. This isn't the first trade Minnesota's done with like they did the Joe Ryan trade, and he's flourished with Minnesota, so maybe they can unlock something with Bradley. But I don't really have any interest in him for the remainder of this season.
I think Taj Bradley might be more interesting next year once Minnesota sorts him
Sure.
out. I do
Yeah.
think it is a good move, at least rest of season in super deep leagues for Taj Bradley because he's getting out of a very homer friendly park
Oh
in
yeah.
George Steinbrenner Field, or as they're calling it, Swamp Brenner Field down in Tampa this year.
Yeah.
So he moves to Minnesota where it's not, it's less of a hitter's homer friendly park than
Yeah.
down in Tampa. So I think if you're in a deep league and you're desperate, pick up Taj Bradley as a speculative ad. And just one note on Fairbanks next year, I think you are correct there that Jax is going to be the guy next season because typical Rays playbook, Pete Fairbanks has a club option next year for $7 million. And so I doubt they're going to pick that up. All right, moving on to my New York Yankees, our New York Yankees, I should say. They also
Mhm.
acquired 2 closers. So here we go. We're going to lose 2 more closers, David Bednar and Camilo Doval. Now,
Yeah.
the acquisition of Bednar, I think, is the one that creates the bigger question mark of what they're going to do between him and Devin Williams because Bednar's been so good this year outside of the
Mhm.
beginning of the season. Since he got called back up after that demotion, he's been fantastic. But this
Yep.
clearly, before we dive too much into Bednar versus Williams, this clearly opens up a spot in Pittsburgh for Dennis Santana.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, I think Dennis Santana, that's one of the clear pickups so far because I think he closed in Bednar's stead earlier this season. I think he's okay. I mean, I think his numbers are good. I don't know that he's like an elite closer, and he also plays for the Pirates, so I think he's probably the back end of your closer pool. But yeah, I think if you need saves, pick up Dennis Santana.
Rest of season, how many saves do you think Santana gets?
Five, 5 or 6.
Actually, I'm going to take the overall say he gets 8 to 10, just because I'm looking at the projections and they're saying 10, and I think that's being very generous to Pittsburgh. So I'll go a little bit under at 8,
That's fair.
and hope that's like 1 per week for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, the other guy that was acquired by the Yankees, Camilo Doval, leaves San Francisco, lost his closer
Mhm.
job, got the closer job back. Who's the guy now in San Francisco? Is it Randy Rodriguez or is it Ryan
Ryan
Walker?
Walker.
Yeah.
I would say Randy Rodriguez gets the crack because he's just been so good. I think he deserves it. They've already removed Ryan Walker, so I just kind of think he's just more of like a middle innings, maybe setup guy. Like he'll probably be the setup guy based on who San Francisco traded away. So I would say Walker gets the eighth and Randy Rodriguez gets the ninth in a perfect world. Now, again, I don't know that there's been any official statements, so watch the game logs over the weekend for sure. But yeah, I think Duvall. I think he has like absolutely no fantasy value now because he's definitely not closing in New York. I think he's just there to bolster the pen. I noticed New York sent down Ian Hamilton and another
Oh,
reliever
thank goodness. Oh my
today.
God.
So I think Duvall is just, filler, middle innings filler. Now, as you said, impact on Devin Williams. I think what's his name? Aaron Boone. Well, what's his name? What's his name? Aaron Boone, I think, publicly said yesterday that he's planning to keep Williams for now as the closer. So, but as we've seen this season, New York is not afraid to mix things up. So, I think if Williams has another rocky spell, they'll probably put Bednar right in that role. So, I mean, I kind of think Williams has the better stuff, but it's been a little rocky this season, so I could see them mixing and matching.
They also have no stake in Devin Williams past
No.
this season. Williams is a free agent. Bednar is under contract, under team control, I should say, for 1 more year. And I
Yep.
believe Duvall is also under control for 1 more year. I know Weaver's a free agent. I know
Yep.
Williams is a free agent. So I could totally see Bednar and Duvall being the 8-9 guy next year for the Yankees. And
Yep.
who knows? Maybe Weaver struggled since coming back from that hamstring injury. Williams has been shaky all season. Maybe it totally swaps and these guys are the 8-9 guys for the rest of this year. But like you said, Camilo Duvall, no more fantasy value in a saves only league. Saves plus holds though may still hold some value,
Yeah.
I believe. And then of course Bednar will retain value in saves plus holds, and then could potentially be a good stash if you have an extra roster spot just to see how it shakes out with Devin Williams. Over to Queens, to the Mets. They acquired a bunch of closers as well, but we're really just going to focus on Ryan Helsley, acquired from St. Louis. Phil Maton was also dealt away from St. Louis to Texas.
Yeah.
So St. Louis dealing away Helsley to the Mets and Maton to the Rangers. Who closes in St. Louis? By the way, there goes another top 10 closer.
Right. Yeah.
So just to quickly recap, Robert Suarez, Mason Miller, David Bednar, Camilo Doval, Ryan Helsley. That's 5. I mean, okay, you want to put Doval as a top 15, but that's 5 out of top 15 closers that now have a giant question mark or have no
Yeah.
value.
I've never seen anything like this before. Well, actually, some news just broke. 30 minutes ago, it seems like someone from the Cardinals front office indicated that they liked Jojo Romero as the top candidate to close.
I could see that. He's been quite hot lately.
It's I think again that's just you know that's rumors and murmurs from the industry. So I don't know what Marmal's gonna do. I don't know if they'll be mixing matching, but that's official news from Roto World. So I guess I would nab Romero as a speculative ad if you need that.
Yeah, I think Romero's a great choice as a speculative ad, like you said. But much like the Twins situation where they dealt away Duran
Right, yeah.
and Jax was the presumptive closer, when St. Louis dealt away Helsley, Maton was the presumptive closer, and then St. Louis
Yeah.
deals away Maton.
Yeah.
so so that's like if you want, let's add those to the other 5, right? So that's now 7 guys that we're
Yeah.
dealing with here that were closers or easily presumptive closers who are no longer an
Right,
option in
yeah.
that role for you to pick up. So closing in St. Louis, Jojo Romero. Now, what about Texas? Maton going to Texas. He's got very little closing experience. He's more just like a middle, like a 7th inning guy,
Yeah.
basically his whole career. And Robert Garcia has been fairly good in the
Yep.
role recently in Texas as they have failed to address that position all season.
Well, I think as a fan of the San Francisco Giants, I know another wrinkle in all of this is that Bruce Bochy loves to work his bullpen based on how he's feeling. So this might just be a headache situation rest of season where he just it's up to how he's feeling, how he's vibing his pen on any particular day. That's actually funny. I had going into this trade deadline, I was rostering Robert Garcia, and I was like, I'm gonna grab a closer based on how these trades shake out. So I dropped him in anticipation of making a pickup, and then it was just like madness yesterday, and I just ended up picking up Robert Garcia again. So that was fun. Yeah, I don't know with Texas. I think, you pick up either Robert Garcia or Phil Maton and just see what happens if you really need saves. But I think that's going to be a bit of a headache.
A lot of this is speculation at this point.
Yeah.
Like you
Yep.
said, there's just nothing definitive. It was so wild yesterday, so
Yep.
unprecedentedly wild that there's
Hmm.
just like there's nothing that we can look back on and say, "Oh, well, this is what happened. This is probably what you should look to do." It's just
Yep.
nope. It's a wild west, especially in today's environment where like closer is not
Yeah.
really you like well, we feel like throwing this guy out there because he's,
Hmm.
that's who we feel like playing today. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So murky situations in St. Louis and Texas created by the void of Ryan Helsley and Phil Maton. So
Hmm.
there's more situations to watch. Obviously, in New York, despite the acquisition of Helsley and
That's so
Gregory
crazy.
Soto,
It's
that
crazy that Heldley is useless now. Mason Miller might be useless now. Bednar might be useless now. It's just like it's wild, man. Like these were like drafted as like top closers. Like
yeah.
you felt like when you drafted them early in the season, it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about these spots rest of the season. It's like, nope.
Let's throw Devin Williams in that mix too. There's
Sure,
another
yeah.
one.
There you
It's
go.
just absolutely insanity. What was caused by all the trades yesterday. But we've got to keep it moving here. So we're going to go to Detroit. Detroit acquired a few arms to pitch as setup men, is my guess, to Will Vest. They acquired Kyle Finnegan and Paul Sewald. Paul
Mhm.
Sewald obviously has closing experience with the Mariners.
But he's currently injured, so he's not gonna be he's not gonna be available to September, I don't think.
He is currently injured. He's on the 60 day. And then Kyle Finnegan, who's been the definition of mediocre
Yep.
for Washington over the past few years, though he does rack up the saves.
Yep.
Are you taking them, one of them, or Will Vest rest of the season?
I think this is another really murky I think this was already a murky situation. I think it was like a save share situation with Vest and Canely, I believe,
Yes.
with Vest getting the majority, but I think this just muddies the waters even more. I would actually stay away from this unless you have like Vest and just kind of hold on and see. But like I would kind of stay away from Detroit personally.
Yeah, I am not a fan of Kyle Finnegan's at all. He's been on our wire in both leagues, and I just let him
Hmm.
sit there because he's not very good. He's going to hurt your ratios. For one category, is not worth it.
Yeah.
And like you said, Paul Sewald's going to be out till September. I'm taking Will Vest in this. Canely fell off the last couple weeks,
Hmm.
especially before the All-Star break. He kind of just imploded multiple times.
Yeah.
And Will Vest has been fairly consistent all season. So I think they're going to stick with Will Vest in the role in the ninth inning role, and AJ Hinch likes to basically stick with one guy. So I think Will Vest is the guy who's come out on top there, and I think Kyle Finnegan, he's just not good enough to hold down uh, a closing role on a winning ball club. Simple as that. Over to Baltimore, they sold. They've had an underperforming season, though their offense has come alive recently. So Felix Batista gets hurt. Were they going to trade Batista? We don't know, but he gets hurt. And then they trade away Gregory Soto to the Mets. Sir
Hmm.
Anthony Dominguez, who was going to, Gregory Soto and Sir Anthony Dominguez were supposed to be the presumptive closers when Felix Batista goes down. So Soto gets traded to the Mets. Dominguez gets traded to Toronto. And Andrew Kittredge also gets traded. So you have the three guys who were next in line behind Batista also get traded. So let's make that, if you want to include Kyle Finnegan, losing him as a closer, that would be 8. Then you throw these 3 in there. That's 11. 11
Yeah.
guys. And I guess if you want to count Devin Williams, 12. That is 12 guys. That's
Hmm.
that's almost half of baseball. Just closers gone. Poof. So who closes in Baltimore now?
I mean, and no one you want to roster.
So we can safely ignore Baltimore closing
I think
situation.
so. Well, it's like I think I picked up Yennier Cano.
Oh, he's been bad this year.
Luckily, he was just on my bench, but yeah, the past 2 games he's been horrible. And they weren't even using him in the late innings. Like he came in like the seventh inning. So I don't think he's a candidate for it. What is it? I think his name's like, is it Corbin Martin? I don't
Yeah,
know. It's just like really reaching deep with these names.
yeah.
I think when you have to like really reach for these types of names, that's probably a good sign that you shouldn't be rostering them.
I would agree with you there. Yeah, Corbin Martin is the guy I think that everyone is saying is going to be the closer in Baltimore, but he hasn't pitched in professional baseball since 2022.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. I would just stay away.
I would as well. He also was pitching atrociously at AAA before
Oh, yeah.
getting the
So
call.
even yeah, there you go. Stay away from Baltimore.
Stay away until who knows? Maybe there's some guy that comes out of nowhere and is great. And I think Baltimore will have, enough save chances. I think they'll probably have a few more than Pittsburgh rest of the season, but that will be
Mm,
negated. Those extra, let's say they have 12 save chances rest of the season. I think that will be negated by the giant question mark.
honestly, I think this is just them tanking. I think it's more passive tanking than purpose. I think
Mm.
this is just filler, and I don't know when Batista's due back, if at all this season, but to me this just feels like passive tanking filler until Batista comes back. That said, stay away.
We've got more deals to talk about from Baltimore in just a little bit as we get into the big names that were traded away as well. We've really just been focusing on closers because it created absolute chaos. Like we said, about 12 names who were closers or potential closers after the guys ahead of them were traded were also traded and now have become all but useless in fantasy in a matter of 24 hours. It was
Yeah.
absolutely wild. But we do have a tiny bit of breaking news that I want to get to before we get to the big names, and that is the Yankees have released Marcus Stroman. Not really
Yeah.
fantasy relevant news
I think
for
they've been wanting to do this since
since he
the
signed the
preseason.
contract.
Yeah.
So they have released Marcus Stroman. For a team that needs starting pitching, I do find that a bit interesting, but just to have depth. But I guess they need the roster spot for some of these relievers that they acquired at the
Yeah.
deadline. So next up, big names. All right, so before we get to big names, I just wanted to give one more little update on that Marcus Stroman move. The Yankees are depending on Cam Schlittler then to stay in the rotation the rest of the season because
And
Luis
Luis
Gil's coming.
Heel.
Yep, he's coming back this
Yeah.
weekend. So for a team with World Series aspirations, they're going to go with Rodon, Fried, Will Warren, Luis Gil, and Cam Schlittler. I think that's an indictment of Brian Cashman. Just saying.
Well, it seems like asking prices on starting pitching was pretty outrageous yesterday.
Would agree with that, and we'll get to that in just a little bit as we start to talk about the big names that were dealt at the deadline here. First up, the hottest name that was on the market, Eugenio Suarez, going back to Seattle in a deal that sent Tyler Locklear, first base prospect, to Arizona, who has an immediate spot to play because Josh Naylor was dealt to Seattle. And now Suarez joins his buddy up north in the Pacific Northwest. So what do you think of this move?
I don't think it has like a huge impact for Suarez owners. I think if anything, it's maybe a slight downgrade because of the home park. But I don't think you need to like overly worry about this move. I think it's just a slight downgrade based on the park, but I don't think there's a lot to worry about. I think probably the more interesting fantasy implications are who's going to come up and fill the void in Arizona. I think Jordan Lawler should get some run, which will be nice because he's really been yanked around and not really given a lot of runway.
He has 53 plate appearances.
Yeah, so
And we've been talking about him for 3 years. Isn't
yeah,
that crazy? And he's 22.
He's 22. Yeah, so I'd be curious to see how things pan out in Arizona that fill the void of Naylor and Suarez. So
Yeah, if you look at Eugenio Suarez's numbers when he was in Seattle in 2022 and 2023, in those 2 seasons, he hit a combined 53 homers, drove in 185 runs, and 195 runs, sorry. And he hit about 234
Mhm.
over the last 365 days. So basically, since he turned his season around last year, Eugenio Suarez has hit 53 home runs.
Yeah,
They're getting a slightly different hitter, I think, than they had when he was there those 2
agree.
seasons. And I agree with you. It's not really going to change his value at all. Maybe, okay, so instead of maybe hitting, 15 more home runs rest of season, he'll hit 12. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's going to really impact his value. So if you're a Suarez owner and he is your third baseman, I don't think you need to sell. Now I know we talked about your trade of him last week, but you had a plethora of third basemen, so that was totally
Yep.
fine. And you didn't sell low either. You sold perfectly well and got Logan Webb, and Webb had a great outing this week.
Yep.
Speaking of starting pitching, Shane Bieber, who's been recovering from Tommy John surgery, gets dealt from the Guardians to the Blue Jays. And that
Yep.
one shocked me a little bit because he's been like their ace for a few years now.
Well, I think his contract is up at the end of this season, so I think, or no, he has like a player option. But I just think, if Shane Bieber, I think he'll probably be starting in a couple of weeks now. If he shows any signs of life for the rest of the season and into the postseason, I think he'll get a nice payday next season. So I think this is just kind of an expensive rental for Toronto. I think the Guardians were smartly selling, and this is just sort of a rental for Toronto.
In other big news, Carlos Correa, another Twins deal at the deadline, goes back to Houston where he can bang on trash cans all day.
Boy. I'm a little sour on not on this deal per se, but just on Correa and Houston, at least that era of Houston. But I'll try and put that aside. The biggest thing I'm curious about this is where Jeremy Pena, like what are their plans for him? Because he was their shortstop. Is he going to play third base? No, but oh no, Cam Smith, he's outfield now, right?
I believe Cam Smith is in the outfield. Paredes is probably done for the season because he
Oh, yeah.
this
So they'll probably
destroyed his
shift.
hamstring.
Yeah, so they'll probably play Pena at third, I guess.
Or Correa. I think Correa probably should be moved to third base at this point, not
Oh,
because
okay.
he's poor defensively, but just to prevent him from getting hurt all the time.
It would be. I don't know that it's possible.
Carlos Correa, of course, of the infamous 2 contracts being voided in one offseason as he tried to sign when he was a big free agent.
Yeah.
Another trade to look at here, Merrill Kelly going from Arizona to Texas. Rangers add some depth and additional age to that starting rotation. Any change in value for Merrill Kelly?
How is Texas? I wonder how Texas's home park compares to Chase. Is it Chase Field? I never
I
all
believe it's
these
still Chase Field, yeah.
business changings. I think that's what I'd be most curious about. I think his value kind of stays the same.
I say better win chance in Texas than
Yeah,
in
that's true.
Arizona rest of season.
Yeah, if your league does wins, I think you're right about that. But I don't know. I think it's probably kind of a wash a little bit with him.
Back to Baltimore now for a second here. Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano, the red hot Ramon Laureano, traded to San Diego, where I think they're going to have to fight each other for playing time at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is probably just depth for San Diego. I think again they're going all in, and I think this is just lengthening their roster. So I don't know if they're going to be part of platoons because they already have a pretty robust outfield, I believe.
Yeah,
So
Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis
yeah,
Jr.
yeah. So and what's his name? Brian O'Hearn. He's first base, right?
First base and outfield, yeah.
Outfield. Yeah. So I just think this is there's a lot of depth adding, but I don't know. I guess if you have Laureano, just see how the playing how San Diego uses him.
Going up the 5 freeway to Los Angeles, Dustin May got traded to the Red Sox. Red Sox were looking for starting pitching upgrades, and they got Dustin May.
I guess I like this for May. I mean, it's a real nasty division, and he's his numbers seem like they should be a lot better than they are. I don't know. I think this allows him a little more runway to pitch because the Dodgers were very careful and mixing and matching and piggybacking. So I think this gives him a little more room to develop possibly. Although I think he's a free agent at the end of this season,
I
so
believe so.
I don't know that he'll he'll remain a Red Sox, but I think he's approaching like the most amount of innings that he's ever pitched. So I wasn't it isn't it like crazy low? It's like under 100 or something.
Yeah, I'm opening up his Fangraphs page right now. He's at 104 innings,
Yeah.
which is more than he's pitched in the last 4 years combined.
Oh yeah.
So
I think this is saved for deeper leagues just
the
because
deepest.
I don't know if he's going to run out of steam. I don't know if he's going to be like a 4 or 5 inning type guy. But I would say his innings will be managed. I don't think that's going to change.
I'll say this though. The Red Sox have been really good about getting the most out of pitchers who have mediocre fastballs. And Dustin May's fastball has fallen off a cliff this year. He's at a 97 stuff plus, whereas in 2023, 2022, 2021, 119, 122, 123 going back
Mhm.
each year. And so I think, but his slider is a 107.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think they see he kind of fits the mold of what they do with guys like Brian Bayo and
Sure.
um who's the right-hander, the Tanner Houck. You know, he just
Mhm.
fits that mold where he's not a fastball first guy, and
Oh, that's a
maybe
good point.
they
Yeah,
can, see what they can do with him over the last couple months as they look to build out that starting pitching depth.
that's a
They
good
also
point.
got, didn't they also get Kyle Harrison from the
Yeah, that's
Giants?
right. Yep.
So they're looking a little younger for their pitching. They're looking, but guys that have major league experience that maybe just need a couple tweaks to be successful. So I guess it kind of fits their plan. But as a team who is not far out of the wild card, as that was their biggest transaction at the deadline, I think Red Sox fans are quite disappointed with it. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be on Boston radio right now taking phone calls from those angry fans.
Yeah.
One more deal to talk about here. Chris Paddock traded from the Twins, shocker, to the Tigers. And he actually had a very decent outing for his first outing with the Tigers. Tigers have had really good success with pitching reclamation projects,
Mhm.
namely Jack Flaherty, in recent years. So Chris Paddock, I believe he had 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 run given up yesterday. And
Mhm.
any interest in Chris Paddock now?
Not really any more than I had before. To me, he seems kind of like a stream, like he might be a good like streaming option against like one of the bad Central teams, especially now pitching in Comerica Park, which is a really nice place to pitch in. So I could see streaming him. I don't know that I'm rushing out to pick him up just because I don't think he has the highest of ceilings. I think he's kind of like and more of like a middling to back end pitcher. So, I think he could be a good streamer.
And one more Twins deal, we kind of alluded to it earlier in the show, and that was they traded Brock Stewart to the Dodgers, and they got back James Outman in return. And while this isn't a big name that kind of fits in the rest of the segment here, I think it's kind of an interesting move for Outman because he might finally have the runway to just
Yeah.
play and not worry about getting taken out of the lineup or,
Yeah.
if he struggles for a short period of time, getting yanked and sent back to the minors.
Yeah.
I find that could be a sneaky move there.
Yeah, I saw this yesterday and I agree. I was like, oh, good. Now he'll actually get to play. That was more of like a real life sentiment I had
Yeah.
for him. But because I think it was like a couple seasons ago, I think he showed a lot of promise. I feel like in like it was like the first half of the season, maybe 2 seasons ago, and people were picking him up and thinking like this is a breakout, and then he kind of petered out, and then Dodgers being the Dodgers, if you're not one of their superstars, you're just kind of like, as you said, yanked around and not given a lot of leash. So yeah, this could be. I mean, look at what's his name, Zach McKinstry, with the Tigers this year. He's having a great season, and he was once a Dodger, kind of a similar role to Outman, and yeah, this could be a great change of scenery, as they say.
Now, before we get into our last segment, which is players who weren't traded, I just want to give one more update. Update number 3 on the Marcus Stroman situation. As a Yankee fan, this just angers me even more.
Uh-oh.
I don't really care that they got rid of him. He's been the definition of like mediocre, right?
Yep.
But they're going to eat the remainder of his $18 million salary. So Marcus Stroman's $18 million. DJ LeMahieu's $22 million. That's $40 million they're just eating.
Money's nothing to them.
Well, then I do not want to hear anything next offseason about, oh, we couldn't go higher for Kyle Tucker. I don't want to hear any of that. There's $40 million you were just going to pay out. Stanton's salary is going to take a nosedive next year. Spend all of that on Kyle Tucker. I don't care about depth this, depth that. I don't care. Spend it all on Kyle Tucker. You need the bat. And that's one thing that they didn't get. And I'm sure the price tags were just stupid. I mean, if closers were going for top 10 organizational prospects, there's no way you were going to go get an impact bat for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyway, I could go on and on, but that is a topic for another show.
Yeah.
So let's talk about players who weren't traded. All right, so first up, we have some hitters who were not traded, surprisingly or unsurprisingly. Luis Robert, Stephen Kwan, O'Neill Cruz, and Cubs prospect Owen Casey were 4 of the bigger names who were not dealt at this deadline. Any thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest surprise for me is Luis Robert, and maybe surprise isn't the right word, but more of like a head scratcher.
Yep.
Just because like the White Sox just desperately need an infusion of younger talent. They need to rebuild. Now, Robert has been pretty bad this season, so perhaps his just maybe they tested the market and he's just people were just lowballing.
Very
So
possible.
I think maybe their new plan is to re-up him and then try again maybe in the off season or next season. That I mean that was my first thought when I saw the news of this. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But I was a little surprised to see Stephen Kwan on the rumored to be on the block, but I'm not surprised that he wasn't moved. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, O'Neal Cruz, I think the Pirates would be foolish to trade him because he's one of the few bright spots in that dismal lineup. So I'm not shocked that he is staying put either.
Just a quick note on O'Neal Cruz and the Pirates in general. When they signed Brian Hayes to that $70 million contract or whatever it was,
Yeah.
the owner was like, it's time to start putting roots down. That's what he said. Like he had finally
Yeah.
spent money. That was like the largest contract in organizational
Oh,
history. And they just traded him away. Granted, he's been terrible, but he homered at his first game with Cincinnati. O'Neal Cruz is under team control for a couple more years because Stephen Kwan is under team control for a couple more years. I can totally see those guys not getting dealt.
yeah.
I was surprised, just like you, to hear Stephen Kwan's name. He's got 2 years of arbitration left. Like you
Yeah.
just don't.
I
There's
just
no
didn't
reason to
think
trade
that
a guy like
was
that.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
But I think the biggest surprise outside of Luis Robert, as far as hitters go, for me, is Owen Casey, and that's because there's no spot for him to play.
Mm.
The Cubs are going for it this year.
Yep.
So why not deal him to try and get the best available option to maybe fit into your starting rotation or add someone at a position that you to upgrade like third base. But I will say this, because Kyle Tucker is not under contract for next season, maybe they wanted to keep Casey and hedge their bet in
Yeah.
case he doesn't resign. Kyle Tucker, that is.
That's the move. To me, this just kind of seemed like they were hedging, because they didn't go out and get a third baseman. And yeah, I just think they're keeping they're not selling all their chips. This, I guess, in some ways, I think this is smart because this will probably extend their contending window.
Moving over to pitchers, here's some names that I thought were definitely going to get dealt, and then they weren't. Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, Mitch Keller, Zach Gallen. And then some other surprises that were even mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't traded. Joe Ryan and Dylan Cease. Now back to San Diego for a second here. Dylan Cease, not traded, having an abysmal season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that might be the best not like move that they didn't make is
Yeah.
they didn't trade Dylan Cease, even though he's an unrestricted free agent going into next season.
Yeah, I know he's having a bad season, but he's also a high caliber pitcher. So I think probably that's more worth hanging on to if you're in the hopes that maybe he has a hot stretch for them in the postseason. So I think that's probably why is that he's probably getting lowballed, and they probably just focus their efforts elsewhere. I was surprised to see Mackenzie Gore.
That is on the list, and I just skipped right over him there. Yep,
Oh,
Mackenzie Gore. I was no, you're good. You're good. I totally just skipped right over him. Yes, I was surprised to see him on the list too.
I was like, really? They're like rebuilding, and like he just feels like, and I know he's kind of slipped in the past month or so, but production wise, but I was just like, oh, to me, he just feels like part of their, like a solid pillar of their rebuild. Like, why are they dealing him away? But
With 2 years of arbitration left.
exactly, I was
yeah.
like, no way. I mean, they'd have to like get Leo DeVries in return. But yeah, I was like, I didn't see that happening. But to counter all this, I was shocked that one of Alcantara or Sandy Alcantara or Edward Cabrera and Mitch Keller were not traded. I just feel like those teams they need to restock, and that's those were really good trading chips. So I don't know what all the fallout was with the insider, the trading about, not the inside trading, but like, just like how these negotiations panned out. But it just seems kind of wild that they wouldn't deal these guys for like a hungry market of, teams that need starting pitching.
I do think it's interesting also that the Pirates did not trade Mitch Keller.
I know
Speaking
he's
of
having
paying people,
a
he's owed 17 million next year, 18 and a half the next year, and 20 and a half the year after that. So he is under team control for 3 more seasons after this year. But, the Pirates don't like to spend any money. So I'm surprised that they just kept him
yeah.
around for that. But this is also the same organization that has refused to call up Bubba Chandler.
I know.
Um,
It's
and you mentioned to me earlier this week that the new number one prospect in all of baseball is a Pirate, and you're just not excited about him, Connor Griffin, because
Connor Griffin, yeah.
he's a Pirate. So
Yeah, I mean maybe that's unfair, but it's just like
no, it's
sometimes
not.
there's like certain teams where I hear like, buzz on like a team like the Rays or Kansas City. I just feel like whenever I hear these like I know Bobby Witt really worked out, but like there's just sometimes when I hear these prospects, I curb my enthusiasm, just because, as you said, Bubba Chandler, it's like, well, what's going on with him? It just seems like these like nebulous situations, or maybe their development is kind of behind some of the other teams. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I'm talking in circles, but it just feels like there's a lot of more questions than assurances with some of these organizations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just a couple names here of starting pitchers that we were surprised to even hear about. That I'm even more surprised were not traded. Look, Edward Cabrera has got 3 years of arbitration left, so I can see him not being dealt, just because you need a guy to fill the roster spot, but also at the same time with his injury history,
Right.
having a
Yeah.
good season, take advantage of it if you're the Marlins, and you probably could have gotten a haul for him, but maybe no
Yep.
one wanted to meet the who knows? Who knows?
Who
Some of these
knows?
teams and notice a lot of these players that we're talking about here, Luis Robert, O'Neill Cruz, Alcantara, Gore, Keller, they play for organizations who we generally think of as completely inept. Okay?
Yeah.
So, uh, all we're saying here is their fantasy values don't change because they don't move. Maybe some of them have a lower win percentage because their teams sold. Maybe some of them don't have any sort of change at all. And then, of course, Owen Casey in dynasty leagues, I don't think his value goes anywhere. So,
Yeah, probably just
all right, one more player here, a reliever, because we started the show with relievers. I feel like we've got to end with one.
sure.
And I'm making myself crack up because what I wrote here in the rundown, the one reliever who was not dealt that we
Oh, this
thought was
is
a
I know.
surefire deal to get dealt.
I know. We
The
even gave
s-
advice on this.
we did. The stupid Angels
Oh,
kept Kenley Jansen. And in fact, they bought at the trade deadline and they bought some relievers. They
oh
didn't buy
man.
anything for their lineup, but they bought, or their starting rotation, but they bought some relievers.
Oh bad.
And Kenley Jansen stays put. In a market where closers were going for top 10 organizational prospects, they keep Kenley Jansen.
They could have bought and sold like San Diego. Like they could have sold Jansen, probably gotten like a good return, and they could have inserted Reed Detmers in the closer role. Like what the hell? Like is Jansen's not is he's a free agent after the season, right?
Yes.
Oh, oh my God.
Talk about organizational ineptitude. I'm looking up
Oh,
Kenley Jansen's contract right now just so that we have it, but my computer keeps autocorrecting Kenley to Henley. Kenley Jansen's contract, he's 37, and he is on an expiring deal, a 1-year deal. It's a $10 million contract. You can't tell me that you couldn't find a trade partner for Kenley Jansen.
That's ridiculous.
I can't even with the Angels.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like even the Rockies like stepped up this season and like and like made trades that made, but yeah.
So we started the show with closers. We ended with a closer and organizational ineptitude. I guess we kind of started with organizational ineptitude too. Leo DeVries for a closer. Anyway, that does it for our 2-part trade deadline special. We'll be back next week with 2 new episodes of Midweek Minutes to get you caught up on all of the most important news and notes from around the league. And of course, our feature-length episode as well, which I'm sure we're going to do a follow-up to this closer situation because there's just too many question marks.
There's too
we
many.
have to, right?
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. We'll give you all the things that we've noticed over the course of the next week. And to make sure you never miss that episode and any episode, please subscribe. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. So, for Josh, I'm Eric saying, see you next time.
Stupid Angels.
Oh my God, they're so dumb.